What's up, family? I'm tired. Just got done working and been out in the chicken coop. Completely redoing that. I want to talk to you guys about something today, a little different from what I normally talk to you guys about. Talk about spiritual gifts. Spiritual gifts. I've always had dreams, ever since I was a little kid. And my dreams have always been powerful and have always come true. 1990, I was in the Air Force, stationed in Great Falls, Montana. And I was at this church. And I became the right-hand man to the pastor of the church. And again, having dreams. And I had this dream that his wife and I went to the store. And she wanted to buy some stuff. And I looked at her, I said, sis, I can't let you buy that. That's wasting money. That's wasteful. You don't really need that. And she was like, it'll be all right, Bart. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. I was like, pastor will be mad at you. She's like, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I was like, okay. She bought it. Dream ends. A couple of days later, I show up at the church and I'm doing some stuff at the church. And the pastor and his wife showed up. And we're best friends. And I could see that they were troubled by something. And they were in the office and had the door shut. Someone told me to go share with them this dream that I had. Wasn't really trying to get in their business. That's not who I am, And up until this point, I never really talked to anybody about my dreams before. I go in. And we're sitting there shooting a breeze, laughing and talking. But I could tell that the air was kind of tense. And I tell him, I say, hey, let me share something with you guys. I said I had a dream the other night, and this is what I dreamed. Told them the dream. She's sitting there, she's crying. He's sitting there, he's just looking at me like, eyes all bugged eye. And I'm tripping now. I was like, what? He was like, man, brother, that's what we was just arguing about. We had just got into it because da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like taken back, because I've never told anybody my dreams before. And it's the first time I'm talking to somebody about my dreams and they coming true. Or somebody else is able to see that, man, this guy's having dreams and they're legit, Fast forward. 1991. I'm married. My wife and daughter are in New Jersey, visiting her family. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to say it was a dream. I had this dream where I show up in New Jersey and I go to the storefront church. Nobody's expecting me there. I just show up. Walk in, sit in the back. And everybody's turning and they're looking at me. The pastor gets up, points to me, tells me to come up there. And so I'm not the one. I don't like attention. I don't like being put out front or anything of that nature. That's not who I am. And so, but out of respect for this man, it's like, okay, maybe he wants to say something to me. He has a word for me, or he's going to pray for me. No big deal. So I get up and start walking up front. He tells me, you belong up here with me. And I'm like, no, that's not who I am. This is not what I'm about. I said, I'm just here visiting. He said, you belong up here with me. I said, you don't even know who I am. And he said, brother, I know who you are. You don't know who you are. You belong up here. Sit down. I'm not going to argue with this man in church. You know, he's the pastor of the church. I'm not going to argue with him. I sit down out of respect for him. Then he tells me to get up and say a few words. I'm reluctant again, but out of respect, I get up and say a few words. The dream ends. 2 days later, I'm talking to my wife on the phone. Sunday afternoon. And I was like, hey, let me tell you about this crazy dream I had. And I tell her the dream. She starts busting up laughing. And she's like, oh, you got to tell the pastor. You got to tell Pastor Daniels. I'm like, what? She's like, oh, you have to tell Pastor Daniels. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you just have to tell Pastor Daniels. I don't know she's on the phone with, I didn't know that she was at his house. Apparently, after service on Sundays, the congregation goes to his house and him and his wife has prepared a meal for the congregation. So everybody's at the pastor's house. Pastor gets on the phone. He's like, how you doing, young man? I'm like, okay. And so we've never met, never talked before. And he said, Missy tells me you had a dream. I said, yes. I said, I have a lot of dreams. He was like, well, tell me about the latest dream. So I tell him about the dream about the church. He starts laughing because I perfectly described his church to the T. I described the suits, the dresses, the hats, the gloves everybody was wearing, the pulpit. I described everything perfectly, and I've never been there. And I didn't I didn't just describe everything what people had on. It's what they had on that day, and what they still have on because they're all at his house now. And so he's like, man, God is using you, you know. And so we talk a little bit more and get off the phone. A few days later, he calls me up. We're talking about spiritual gifts. He calls me up. How you doing, young man? I said, I'm okay. He said, I sense that you're troubled. I'm like, what? He's like, I sense that you're troubled. I said, I'm good. I'm always good. No matter what's going on, I'm always good. I don't want people in my business. Never have wanted people in my business. That's just not who I am. I'm a real private person. He said, I sense that you're struggling with something. He said, what's going on with you? He said, God is revealing something to you and you're struggling with it. What is it? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude, you know, and I'm like, who's this guy, Yoda? You know, it's like, how the heck does this guy know what the heck is going on with me? I'm in Montana, he's in New Jersey. And I ain't never met this dude before. Spiritual gifts. So I told him, I said, you know, there's a guy at our church that he just started coming to the church not too long ago. But something's not sitting right with me about this guy, him and his family. Beautiful family. I said, but I'm sensing something's not the way it seems. It's a lie. I said, and I've struggled and I prayed and I've been fasting because I want to make sure I'm not jealous. I know I'm not jealous of this guy. But something's not sitting right with me and I can't really put my finger on it. And it's just like I can't shake it. And I don't know why it's troubling me so much. He said, what do you think it is? I said, I think he's homosexual. This guy wasn't flamboyant. It didn't appear to be homosexual, but that's just what my spirit was telling me. And I'm not knocking homosexuality, to each their own, but please understand at this time, you could not be in the military and engage in homosexual acts. It was never okay in the black community, in the black church, to be homosexual. That's never been okay up until here recently in some black churches. But back then, no. And so I said, I sense that he's homosexual. And I don't believe that his wife knows that he's homosexual. He says, okay. He says, pray about it and fast on it for 3 days. Then go tell your pastor. I'm like, all right. Again, out of respect for this man, I do it. I fast for 3 days and I go tell my pastor. Spiritual gifts. Talking to the pastor and telling him what has been placed in my heart. This guy's homosexual. Pastor goes off of me. This was my best friend. He goes off of me, telling me I have a Jezebel spirit, a controlling spirit, a lying spirit, a demonic spirit, just goes left. And I'm shook, and I'm like, this man's tripping, It's like, all right, whatever, go home. Like, him and his wife must got into it. I'm not going to personalize it, but he's tripping. Next day, get up, go to church. He goes off on me at the church about how I got this lying spirit, demonic spirit, Jezebel spirit, just blah, 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 blah. And how I'm speaking lies on another man of God. I'm pissed. I'm beyond pissed. I'm like fighting mad now. Forget God, forget church. Put them up, let's go. It was crowded that Sunday, and it was like so many visitors there. Spiritual gifts. And I'm mad at God. I'm pissed off at God. And I'm mad at this other dude. Because I'm like, man, I did what I felt like I was supposed to do. I prayed about it. I fasted on it. Meditated on it. And then I brought it towards the man of God. And he goes off on me twice. I'm done. Bunk church, bunk all of this. I'm done. So I leave the church. And I've never gone back. I stopped talking to everybody. I cut everybody off. Spiritual gifts. But 2 months later, the pastor calls me up. He says he wants to go to have lunch. We go have lunch. I'm sensing he wants to talk about something. And he's shooting around the bush. And he finally comes out and tells me that this man, everything is as I said it was. This man's wife came home from work early one day and found him and another young man, another military personnel, engaged in homosexual acts in her bed. And how devastated she was to see this. They got 6 kids. The ultimate betrayal to her. And how the pastor also apologized for what his words and how he responded at church that Sunday, and how the church completely fell apart after that. The next Sunday, half the people was there, and it dwindled down to like less than half a dozen people. Spiritual gifts. Just because you know something, just because you see something that other people can't see, don't mean it's your responsibility to share it. And when it's put upon your heart to share it, don't accept them to embrace it, especially if it's a hard thing. That's on them. A lot of people aren't going to accept what you have to say, especially if they don't want to hear it. That's their issue. Don't make it your issue. A lot of people aren't going to accept and embrace the spiritual gifts you have because they're jealous of you, because they don't understand how it is you have that gift when they don't have that gift. So they're not going to receive what you got to say all the time. Just because they don't receive what you have to say, don't mean that you don't have that gift. You have to learn to love, accept, and embrace yourself enough to where it don't matter where people accept you or not. It don't matter where people believe you or not. You know who you are. You know what gifts you have. Learn to operate within your spiritual gifts. You don't need anybody else's permission. You don't need anybody else's approval to operate within your spiritual gifts. I love you guys. Peace.